and George started together, he walked in the gym here and he was a martial arts fanatic.
When we first actually met, Fares and I, we were training partner, and Fares is Anglophone background, I'm Francophone. We could not really communicate with each other because my English was very bad and his French were not very good. So we were more communicating in terms of body language in training with each other as a training partner.
So we were training together, we were like best friends right away. Why? Because we both had the same passion.
I do remember noticing, hearing a lot about George in the gym, and he was doing well. And I remember he got matched, I believe the name was Pete Spread. And I remember thinking, wow, that's not gonna go well. And George just wiped the floor with him. I think he choked him on the first round and just manhandled him.
The choke, he's taking the choke. This one could be over, folks. Oh, and it's over!
And I remember that for me, I come from a striking background. I remember that being eye-opening in that, yeah, Pete Spread was a really good striker, but it really didn't matter. And it really changed my perspective as a coach to understand other facets of MMA. Understand it's not just about striking, there's a lot more to it than that. And I think Fares was obviously ahead of the curve there in recognizing that. Recognizing, yes, you have to know how to strike and you have to be good at it, but at the end of the day, if this guy is a much better wrestler and a much better grappler, you're in big trouble.
The thing is, back then, a lot of people were doing just jiu-jitsu. And some guys were kind of doing vale tudo, like a mix. But the jiu-jitsu guys were like a clique. No, you don't need striking, you don't need this and that. Me and George were really on the MMA boat right away. So a lot of the jiu-jitsu guys did very little striking or very little wrestling. And we were like, no, you need striking, you need wrestling, and you need conditioning too.
And so George was one of the first that started to have a bit of everything. He was a very good wrestler, he was a good striker, and I think that set him apart at that time.
I just want to say to the American fighter, soon, a Canadian young gun is coming to kick ass.
The early days of MMA in TriStar was very difficult. I remember I was training David Loiseau. David Loiseau was the first Québécois to make it to UFC, so he was really on the edge, the cutting edge of MMA in Montreal and in Quebec. And I remember we were preparing for a professional fight, and we were training around the clock. I would come in after school, help him, I'd hold pads for him, we'd wrestle. I mean, we're just a handful of guys preparing for a fight. And I remember he fought, he chipped his tooth. I remember him chipping his tooth, he broke his tooth. He won the fight, he won maybe like $1,000, but the dentist's bill was about $3,000. Or he had broken a tooth or something, and he needed, and I was like, wow, this must be really difficult. We've been training for months, and now we're in the hole. He's in the hole, $2,000. How could somebody live, that lifestyle? But it was just people were doing it because they were passionate, they loved the sport, they wanted to be, they wanted to be like Royce Gracie, they wanted to be a star, they wanted to make it, they wanted to show that the martial arts skills they were true warriors, true martial arts mentality, even though it was so difficult to live off it. And soon later, the market exploded. It grew, but early on, you can't, nobody knew that was gonna happen. Nobody could tell that the market was gonna explode.
Dave was exceptionally talented. I love Dave as a person, but I think now that he's doing a lot more coaching, that he'll look back and realize there were a lot of opportunities that he could have had, that he should have had. Sometimes it comes down to just preparation, and I think physical preparation leads to mental preparation. I think when you've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's and you've done everything you have to do training-wise, you've sparred with the best guys in the gym, hard, you've really challenged yourself, then I think you have that mental confidence as well as you're at ease. You're in a kind of a peaceful place of whatever happens, happens. I did everything I could. But when you subconsciously feel, that you might have cut some corners, you didn't quite do things the way you should have. I've seen many, many guys have that hit them literally going into the ring or going into the cage. And it's interesting, I spoke to George one time right after he lost to Matt Serra. And I remember this because it was very telling of George's character. He took me aside and he said, you know what, Conor, it's the best thing that could have happened to me. He said, I go, what do you mean? And he goes, you know what? I was screwing around. I was partying, I was goofing around, I wasn't sparring with the guys I should have been, I wasn't taking it seriously. And I thought, don't worry, I got this, it's Matt Serra, I got this. He goes, you know when I realized I didn't have it? He goes, you know when the ref points at you, he goes, are you ready? Are you ready? He goes, when the ref pointed at me and said, are you ready? A wave of fear came over me. And I thought, holy shit, I'm not ready for this. I'm gonna get killed. This is what differentiates George from a lot of other athletes. He'll take a moment like that, put the blame on himself, which is where it belongs, and grow from it. He won't repeat a mistake twice. That's something that I think George had in his character from very early on that made him get to where he is.
After I lost my fight with Matt Serra, I was kind of lost because nobody in Montreal was really qualified to teach a global MMA system. Everybody was either coming from jiu-jitsu or kickboxing background. Nobody really knew the sport at the time.